Kimberly Rice, and you are tuned into the Secret Sauce Marketing Tasting Show, the groundbreaking podcast for business bosses, professional women, and anyone who is hungry to learn how to create the career, business, and life of their dreams by charting their own course. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Secret Sauce Marketing Tastings. I'm Kimberly Rice, President and Chief Strategist of KLA Marketing Associates. I'm just wondering what hat I'm wearing today. I could not be more excited to welcome my buddy and my colleague, Mark Halpert of, what is your name of the company again?
Connect to Collaborate.
That's right. I'm so sorry. Connect to Collaborate. Such a phenomenal name, and I'm all about that.
Came to me in the car. I was driving along. So what do I call this thing? Well, I'm connecting, and what do I do after that? And I put the number 2 in the middle, and there we go.
It's phenomenal. It's so phenomenal from a marketing messaging perspective, because we teach our clients all the time how important it is to be super concise with our messaging. So, everything that we do as far as in the written word is tells a story. And right there, you get them immediately. Connect to Collaborate. It's all about that. So welcome to you, Mark, today.
Thank you for having me again.
Absolutely. We are so excited because our listeners, I'm sure by now know, that this is the second in a series of podcasts that Mark and I are having, informal conversations, because we picked up together a topic that is near and dear to each of our hearts, and that is how to leverage LinkedIn. More than ever, while we're all living through this COVID-19 pandemic, there are tremendous opportunities to connect, to collaborate, to grow and build our online networks, and to actually, be engaged and retained to deliver our services. So this is going to be one of the topics that Mark and I discuss today, and what we're calling leveraging LinkedIn, what to do after you say, I do. Good. So Mark, start us off. Leveraging LinkedIn. We're going to assume that all of our listeners and viewers today have a LinkedIn profile. They've gone through all the sections that you've outlined so elegantly in your book, LinkedIn for Lawyers. There you go.
I have to have it.
Wonderful LinkedIn marketing techniques that every single person, business person at least, should have, and with their highlighter nearby for a step-by-step guide on how to build and grow your populated profile. But something that I hear all the time from my colleagues and my clients and just in the business world at large is that people don't know what to do with the connections that they are connecting with after they say, I do. Either they've reached out for a connection or a connection has reached out to them. So this is what we want to talk about. And so I'm going to give it right to you.
Okay. Let's assume we're not in a pandemic.
Okay.
All right. Because it won't last forever. Let's hope. Let's assume your business needs that extra kick and you want to get that visibility. They've looked at your LinkedIn profile. They reach out to you and they can say, I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. What do you do? Well, I don't connect to them. I don't connect to people I don't know. I don't connect to people who don't tell me how I can help them. So I might look at their LinkedIn profile and I might see if there's a glimmer of interest of something that I could help them with. I might say back to them, how can I help you? Have we met? I look forward to hearing from you. And 99.999% of the time, I never hear back from them. I've either scared them or they don't have an answer. That wasn't meant to be. Mm-hmm. But if somebody introduces me to somebody, like I was introduced to you, or if someone introduces themselves and says, I am in the same field of, and we share X number of connections, and I see you did a little research, they did a little time and energy and effort, then I might say to them, let's jump on a phone call. I want to get to know you. It's exactly what I did with you. And man, did we connect. We connected at a really strong level. Those are worth the time and the effort. Not everything works well. So if somebody wants to connect with me, I have to understand how I can help them. I said this in the last session as well. Let's assume we are in a pandemic, because we are. Now is the time for all of us to be marketing our butts off. And I say this all the time, but I especially say it in a pandemic, because when we come out of the pandemic, for those of us who've been marketing throughout the pandemic, we'll be in a much better sense, much better place to get further along to restart our business. But the people, I was talking to a guy on the phone this morning, he's afraid to market himself. He wants to do it when the pandemic is over, because he doesn't think now's the time, no one's paying attention. Oh, but they are, because people have all this time on their hands. And you can make an appointment with just about anybody at any time. It doesn't matter anymore, because everybody's waiting to do something new and have a little fun with it. It takes them out of the humdrum of sitting around and looking on the internet, that type of thing. So there's all sorts of ways to look at this, and those who do the homework now will be benefited later. So you've said the I do, you've got your profile great, people understand in a heartbeat what you want to do. You go out and you approach them and say, hey, we had a really nice conversation back on March 15th. I'd like to continue that conversation with you. Many people will continue to Zoom, or let's get on the phone, but so long as it's not email, because email is one-sided and it's non-tonal. You can't hear my excitement on LinkedIn, on an email. You can hear it the way I write. You can hear it the way I speak. You can hear it when I speak to you on the phone. And that's when the give and take of conversation is so important. And it goes from there.
It absolutely does. That's a phenomenal point. As a communications expert, one of the things that I teach all the time in a non-pandemic world normally, and that is on communications, corporate communications, and how we can become more effective and powerful in our communications. And what we know from science is, if we think of communications as a pizza pie, as a circle, 65% of how we communicate is non-verbally.
Absolutely.
25% is tonal, as you say, how we use our voice, either loud, small, or more muffled, or quiet, or all those things. Only 10% of how we communicate is via our words, what we actually say. So of course, when you cut out the in-person or the Zoom, which has the video capabilities, when we're in email or text, you're eliminating 90% of how you're intending to communicate. So, it shouldn't be any surprise that there are so many misunderstandings. And as I was taught in my college courses, message sent was not message received.
That's right. Oh, that's really clear. And, I'll take us back one step to the LinkedIn profile, and that is, the verbs you use in your LinkedIn profile should be professional business presentation level verbs.
Yes.
If you use has, was, did, made, you're talking fifth grade language. You're not a fifth grader. So here's a tip. If you need to find those verbs, Google 185 power verbs. And there's an article in a magazine called The Muse called 185 power verbs. And you can use any of those verbs. It's really designed for resume writers, but it works equally as well for LinkedIn profiles. And if you can speak that way on your LinkedIn profile, you've gotten through a lot of the atonality, and you're using words that people, well, this guy or this woman really can express him or herself. I like that. I'm buying into that.
Given the words person that I have always been, and those closest to me know this, and I know I get on their everlast nerve, but I have like a whole list of Kimberly's words that are outlawed in my world.
Yeah. Give me one. Here, I'm asking you the question. Go ahead.
First of all, and many people have heard this, but it absolutely drives me bananas, is when people call me Kim, which is a little bit off of a tangent. But
I did that once.
But because it's just, the sociology of how we like to shorten words.
Mhm.
And I understand creating that familiarity and friendliness and collegiality. I get it, but to do that without asking someone's permission, because some people will say, do you prefer to be addressed as Kim or Kimberly, which I greatly appreciate. And I'll say Kimberly only, just to kind of underline my point. So that's an aside. But there's two words that I absolutely despise, as far as words, that I never use, and I will spend an hour in a thesaurus to get around using. The number one word is get, G-E-T, get. I hate that word.
Okay.
I think it's the most vanilla, guttural, non-descriptive, I just hate the word.
The fifth grader word. I agree with you.
The second word, which I think I even feel stronger about, I really hate this word. The word nice.
Oh, yeah.
I can't stand that word. Can
I add interesting to that? Can I add interesting? That's so non-interesting.
Right.
All right. And here's a word I hate, and then we got to go back to LinkedIn, okay? Ecosystem. If you're a biologist, tell me about the ecosystem. If you're in IT, I don't talk ecosystem. I don't get that word. But okay, let's go back to LinkedIn.
But you know what? This is really touching my heart, because words matter.
Oh yeah.
That's the whole thing. Words matter. And in a LinkedIn profile or a LinkedIn request, connection request, receipt or given, it matters. Every single word is going to be dissected. And for someone like myself and like you, we're published authors and, national speakers and presenters. Every single stinking word has been labored over in order to ensure that I am communicating as clearly and concisely as possible. So when I receive when I receive any kind of note, email, anything that involves words, and I see what I call lazy words, like the word nice, I really have very little interest. Yeah. Whatever it is that you're saying to me, you've just about lost me if you use the word nice.
When your brain shuts down on somebody else's speech or writing, you never come back. And on LinkedIn right now, since we're also attention deficit, it is so important to make them want to read from as far top to as far bottom as you can get their visual, intellectual attention. And when you lose them, or they see something they don't understand, like you may use an acronym that you should never use, or that is only used in your field, and they're not in your field, they scoot, they're gone, and they never come back. So, so the I do is, I accept what you say you are. I believe to a certain extent what you say you do. You've told me why you do what you do. Let's go one step further, if we could, in this conversation. Sure. Choose your recommenders and your endorsers really carefully. So there's probably some lawyers out there listening. Anybody who endorses you for any of your skills, lawyers, on your LinkedIn profile, they should know you for that skill, because the bar associations are digging behind your profile to see if there's actually somebody who is authentically aware of your skill in whatever it is, okay? You know that there are rules that you can and cannot say on your LinkedIn profile as lawyers because of various bar restrictions. You know you have to have disclaimers on there, but you have to tell the truth. The same goes for recommendations. If somebody says, Kimberly is the only lawyer who could ever have won a $250 million settlement for our company, that is verboten. Never, ever let anybody write a recommendation, much less you publish that recommendation, that you can't reproduce each and every time.
Right.
The same goes for non-lawyers. I'm sorry, I know you want to talk, but it's my show. You know that. Same goes for non-lawyers. The last thing you want to do is for me to go up to Kimberly and say, hey, Kimberly, I see we both know John. John has endorsed you for your skills in mediation. And you say, I don't know John in mediation. well, I feel dumb, you look dumber, and John he's just going along for the ride. So you never want to do that.
No.
The same thing for recommendations. The story has to be admirable, it has to be honest, it has to be demonstratable, and it has to be memorable on any recommendation. And so what I tell people for the I do is to further that I do, and that is ask for a recommendation by asking the recommender to basically reparrot back to you what you're asking them to recommend you for, and then everybody's served. It's totally honest, it's totally legitimate, and you're just having them reflect a facet of the cut gemstone that you really are. Find that trait.
I absolutely agree. And one thing that I'll just say to clarify about the recommendations is for those folks who've never given nor received, they can be powerful. They can be testimonial-like. If you request a recommendation, then you, the requester, has an opportunity to review the recommendation and request any edits or tweaks before you publish it.
Right.
I've seen this both ways. I have requested a recommendation. It has come back not completely accurate, so I've made suggestions for just correcting it to be more clear and accurate. And then that person never does that, and so I can't publish that. And so that was just a waste of time for both of us. On the other hand, I have been asked for recommendations, and my follow-up is, is there anything specifically that you would like me to speak to? Because, you know, and depending on the relationship, I might have known people for 10, 20 years, and we've had many types of interactions and experiences together. And, you know, I want to be as clear and concise as I possibly can and as helpful as I possibly can. So I don't know what's in the requester's mind of what he or she may be looking for specifically to boost their reputation around. So, you know, there's a little bit of responsibility on both parts, but it comes right back down to being a clear and concise communicator.
Right. You would never accept someone recommending you as Kim, and I would never allow anybody recommending me as Mark, M-A-R-K. I had one recommendation written back to me as M-A-R-K, and I did send it back to the recommender, and I said, you know, it's lovely, it's wonderful, but you're talking about somebody else. Could you please correct the spelling? Or grammar errors, or just outright incorrect memories of the situation. That's not something that you want to have to remember, well, how did he remember that? Because that's not the way I remember that. You never want to be stuck in that corner.
It's awkward.
Yeah.
So I want to go back for a minute to the after I do, because I talk to countless professionals day in and day out, clients, not clients, members of organizations, people who are really wanting to grow their business, understanding that there's an opportunity, you know, digitally, but they just don't know how to grasp the power of it. And I want to talk a little bit about once you connect, once you and I connect with an individual who we know or we have a reason to get to know, you know, what are some of the best steps that we can take proactively? That's a key word, because a lot of people are not proactive, but proactively take to advance this now budding new online relationship.
Okay, I got a great example. It just happened today. Today's blog post, I don't know if you saw it, was about a guy I met through another person. Turns out this guy I met grew up one street away from where I grew up. God's honest truth. We had to hatch it and figure it out, but we figured it out. And so I made him a connection. And then I was waiting for the opportunity to onboard the new connection. And that's where I'm going here. And I always find an article that came up in the conversation when we were talking to each other before we connected, or a similar interest that we both share, or something. And it turned out to be this blog post. And I sent him the blog post. I said, this may sound really familiar, but this is you. And he wrote back to me, and I ended it with, and let's find the next way to collaborate. Ball's in your court. And so we're tossing the ball back and forth right now. Anytime you bring somebody else in new, it's like planting a seedling. You have to give it the fertilizer to grow. Right. And if you don't give it anything, it's going to wither and then it's gone. Yeah. But if you stay, as I call, pinging in their radar screen in their head, they will continue to remember you as a giver. And the next time there's a referral that's needed, or the next time they hear at a cocktail party they're looking for a LinkedIn coach, you're the person that they refer you. And that becomes powerful stuff.
It's so, I mean, this is one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about it, is because LinkedIn is such a powerful platform from the comfort of our home offices or our sofas or our kitchen tables. I mean, literally the world is our oyster when it comes to that. But it's, I think for me, I mean, it's so easy. But I've been doing it for, as long as there has been LinkedIn. I think I was a somewhat early adapter, maybe 2006, 7, I think 2007 I jumped on. But a couple of techniques that I do after I say I do, or someone else says I do, and we connect. I do one of a couple of things. Number one, I reach out after the person has responded to me, and I'll say something to the effect of, it's great to connect here on LinkedIn. If you would find it of value, I would be delighted to schedule what we call GACs, get acquainted calls. Here's a calendar link for easy scheduling. I would love to learn more about you and your business and how I can support you. Nothing but being in service to others.
That's perfect.
It's short, it's sweet. Then
what goes around comes around. I say this all the time.
Yep, the law of attraction. Second thing that I do often is, because I've been a writer forever, I have, I come up with different words of how to describe my deep digital vault of resources. There's been several stints over the last decade plus where I've been a featured columnist in various journals, legal journals, business journals, and I submitted or contributed an article a month for 10 months of the year for 8 years.
Just 8 years.
And that was just one publication.
You're a slacker.
I know. So every month I was conceiving and listening to the marketplace and what do people need to hear about in my world and what are my clients. And so I have this tremendous deep vault, not only of the things that I've authored, but for topics that I have seen over the course of my business career, which is a few years, in building a prosperous business, or presentation skills, or networking skills, or all of those kind of nuancy skills that none of us are necessarily born with. And the number one thing that I hear all the time is, I don't really know how to use LinkedIn. I've kind of dabbled with it, or I'm a really great plug-in subject matter expertise, but I'm not good at sales. And my first response is always, and there's no reason you should. There's no reason that you should be. I'm not a professionally trained salesperson, but what I've done over the last decade or plus is I have invested in myself. I've invested in my business. I've learned some some professional sales tips and trainings and techniques. And in fact, I'm a part of a program now. But my point is giving to get. Yeah. Giving to get. And when people respond to me, or they'll connect with me, they'll say, "Oh, it's great to connect." Bam, the end.
And I'm like, conversation. Yeah.
Like, what? That is such a conversation stopper.
Right. And it can go on for years. I'm talking to a firm right now. I spoke there 9 years ago. And out of the blue comes a referral to somebody in the firm. And I said, I know the name of that firm. Let me just see how many years ago it was. Turns out, he says to me, "Are you the LinkedIn evangelist?" And I said, this is the other day. And I laughed really hard. He goes, "Did I just embarrass you?" I said, "Not at all. If you could see me grinning, you would see it ear to ear, because my brand name stuck with you 9 years." And then he referred me on to the managing director, who was the one who I spoke to try to work at that firm.
Sure.
So anytime that you can be memorable, top of mind for a reason, for being a giver, for being a term, a brand, recognizable, you're writing. People say, oh, sure, I saw Kimberly at the last conference. Oh, sure, I met her at an evening networking event. I remember her. That is huge stuff. And you can pull those cards. A friend of mine and I are going to start a TV show of sorts where he's going to be the networking expert and I'm going to be the LinkedIn expert. And we're going to talk about brand marketing as a networking lead provider. And I pulled a card. I called this guy who I know, who's very, very well known. I can't mention his name right yet because he's asked me not to. But I said to him, hey, can I ask you to help us? Would you do a cameo appearance on our first TV show? He said, in a heartbeat, done, no problem. And I met him 17 years ago. We both got driven out to Vermont to talk at a SCORE conference, and I guess nobody else would do it, so the two of us got to do it, and we became friends, and I pulled that card, and this is what we all do. We all help each other in a way that is not immediate, not recognizable, there's no scale, it's never completely even, but man, when it delivers in big time. I just love it.
Yes, and a couple things come to mind is it really, as a business person, it doesn't take a lot of effort or energy to find something that you can offer. You know, that's why I always counsel our clients to populate their profile to the max.
Yep.
Take every single section to the max of the word count. And that just challenges us. I've done that, is to think creatively about what else can you say that others may want to know, because you just don't know if it's in your volunteer section or if it's in your accomplishments section or all the different sections of LinkedIn, what the next greatest someone is going to see in that's going to click, that's going to make them want to reach out to you. And then asking open-ended questions to learn about that individual, what their pain points are in their business, how do they need support, who do they need to be connected to. It really does not take a lot of effort if you're motivated to move it forward.
You have to talk about yourself, because if you don't do it, I think I said this last time, no one else is going to do it. Yeah. If they do, it's going to be horrible, and you're going to wish you had done it instead of them. So you always have to be able to tell about yourself, not what about yourself, but why you do what you do. You've heard me say this before. I say it in all my writings. I say it all throughout my daily blog, and I blog every weekday of the year. Yeah. Maybe I take the day after Christmas off, maybe New Year's Eve off. My boss said it was okay. But nonetheless, it's a matter of being in the moment, being recognizable, resonating with people who might just remember you. And it's so important.
How much time would you say day to day? Because this is something that people get all jammed up about, content marketing. So you and I blog almost every day. Today, I posted our podcast from a couple weeks ago. Every day I'm reading HBR, I'm scanning headlines, I'm seeing I'm listening to what's going on, what are people's pain points. And just one thought, yesterday the word adaptation came to mind.
Okay.
This is a time for great adaptation. And what does that really mean? And who really said it? And I went to Google and I just said adaptation quotes. And I believe a Charles Darwin said, it's not the smartest people that survive, but it's the people who manage change best.
Good.
That was it. I saved that to my desktop. I pulled that as an image. I wrote 3 sentences about it. I put my hashtags up, and that was a post for the day. It took me less than 4 minutes to do that.
Exactly. And people think, well, I can't do this every day. Well, you sure can. If you think about what you're reading and is it a value to you, would it be value to anybody else? And like you said, it takes moments to put a small introduction to an article, the link to the article, and 3 hashtags.
Right. That
is going to get your post in front of the eyes of everybody who follows those hashtags on LinkedIn, which is millions of people. If you do hashtag LinkedIn brand marketing, oh my God, everybody's seeing it because everybody wants to know about it.
Yeah.
I live my life, I'm very lucky, almost every day I get something I can write about. that's LinkedIn oriented. That's my blog. It's all about my crazy life and how LinkedIn is, there's a lesson in everything, and I twist it to LinkedIn.
Yep.
You wrote a wonderful guest blog piece. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I have other people who have written for me. I write the bulk of it. I did a 13-section series on emotional intelligence. Oh God, get me started on that. It just comes gushing out. Because a friend of mine wrote an article, I think it was in Inc.com, about emotional intelligence, and it had 13 points, and I wrote to him, I said, great article, can I just riff off of each of your points? He goes, have at it, go have a good time. And I made each one of those 13 points a LinkedIn-related emotional intelligence point. And it just went all over the place. It was terrific. So I get crazy stories, I get dumb stories, I get smart stories, I get success stories, I get people who say, I don't want to learn LinkedIn. Well, do you remember the first time you sat down to Word and said, I don't want to learn Word? You don't say, your opinion's not asked. You learn it because you have to use it or else you don't exist. So enough of that conversation.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I do remember when I was forced to learn Word, because I was using Word Perfect, and I loved all of their margin, how easy it was to move the margins around, and how LinkedIn, it was so onerous. But here's a question, our last question to talk about, and that is, what do you say to business people, professionals on LinkedIn who say, I have a job, I don't need to have a network. Why do I want to spend any time on this platform? It's just an online resume.
Okay. Well, you know those 26 million people who are unemployed right now? I will say that 26 million times. Okay? Because if you work for somebody else, you're not in charge of your career. Okay? For the rest of us who are in charge of our own career, it's publish or perish. It is be out there or not be findable. And if you're not findable, and your competitor is doing better than what you're doing on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is the currency of business right now, you will not survive. The competitor will win, even if the competitor has a bad profile, because you're asleep at the switch. Never sleep at a switch. Yeah. Always use everything you've got, because you, as an entrepreneur, we've got this amazing roller coaster of ups and downs. Work every up and down every way you can. And hopefully it'll flatten some of those ups and downs a little bit, not only cash flow wise, but recognition wise. People who approach you out of the blue, hi, you don't know me, on the phone, hi, you don't know me, but I heard all about you, or I saw you speak at a conference 3 years ago, and I kept your business card in the bottom of my drawer, and now I really want to talk to you. Oh my God, that feels so good. So it's got to be out there.
There's just nothing like it. And in like a number of things in life, there's only so many words that are available to us to describe the fullness of the experience. And so we can evangelize all day long on the benefits of LinkedIn. But for some folks, and I get it, because I come from a world of cynics and skeptics in the legal services world, and I get it. And they're only hurting themselves and depriving the world of their zone of genius, because they're
also hurting the firm, because the firm works very hard to brand themselves, and if they brand themselves along the line in their own special way, special sauce on what they can do for a client, the firm benefits as a whole. I was just explaining that today on the phone. So there's so many things, and if you don't work for a firm, and if it doesn't apply to you, it's your company. And if you're a sole prop, it's you. And I don't know how to get any more personal than, if you can't tell about yourself, you're missing the greatest opportunity of your business life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mark. I absolutely have a ball with our conversations, sprinkled with such secret sauce, and such wonderful nuggets, lathered in secret sauce, and such wonderful nuggets of wisdom that have been gathered from our experience. And, it is my sincere hope that our listeners are going to garner and act upon some of the greatest pieces of wisdom and experience that Mark and I are delivering today. And of course, he's the LinkedIn evangelist, Mark Halpert of Connect to Collaborate. But we want to thank our listeners again and for joining us. And please, if you are unsure, uncertain, you're interested but not quite there, Mark and I are always available. And Mark, why don't you tell people the easiest way to connect with you?
Well, go to my LinkedIn page. It's linkedin.com/Mark Halpert, M-A-R-C, Mark with a C. We talked about that a minute ago. M-A-R-C-H-A-L-P-E-R-T. And if you want to see my website, my blog, it's collaborate.com. I love talking about this topic. I love helping people. Not everything is for a fee. You can ask me questions. You can email me. I give more than I receive, and that's what makes it all go round.
That's right.
Thank you again. I really, really appreciate this.
Thank
you.
The
next one, right?
To the next one. We will to be continued.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.